This podcast is brought to you by www.twolinedmusichut.com. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, this is Muscle, and this is another Two Line Music Hut's Entertainment Report podcast. And tonight, we have a really special guest in the building. I mean, really special. We're talking about a poet, a speaker, a social entrepreneur, a writer, a photographer, and I'm pretty sure there's 10 or 12 more things I left after the list, but I'll let him introduce it to you. We have Dwayne Morgan in the building tonight. What's good, my brother?
First, I just want to thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
And you know, it's a great platform just to to connect with the community. So,
For sure.
you know, very eager and anxious to talk about some stuff and see what's going on.
Definitely. And I know a man like you, you're so busy. When I was going through, because I've been following you for a while, and then I went through your bio and I seen like, when does this guy sleep? When do you relax? Holy smokes.
Yeah. I think one of those things is if you love what you're doing, then there's no need to relax. What are you relaxing from? You know what I mean? I only do things that I love to do, so that I never need a break from it.
Clearly. So. Wow. As I said, poet, speaker, writer, photographer, social entrepreneur. What else could we add to the list?
Let's see, event producer.
Yep.
Candidate in the last election. Scarborough Walk of Fame inductee. There's probably a few more other things that, you know what I mean? It depends.
Few more hats.
It depends on what hat I'm wearing at the moment, you know what I mean? So,
It's just a couple more hats. I won't say too much. It's just that. Wow. So let's go back to the beginning, because you're probably the longest poet that I know running in Canadian history. I don't know anybody that from the early 90s until now that's been doing poetry. So what got you into the arts per se? Growing up, did you want to be a poet, or where did it start?
Yeah, I had absolutely no desire to do poetry. I'm actually an introvert, so to do anything that would require me to be in front of people is not something I would have chosen to do. And we were doing a Black History Month assembly at my high school, and all my friends had talent. And I'm just like, yo, man, I have no talent. Nobody's going to see me shining. So I'm just like, yo, the easiest thing to probably do is just try and write a poem.
Yeah.
So I just wrote a poem to try to, jump in this talent show with the rest of my friends.
Yeah.
And there were these two women from an organization called the Tropicana Community Services Organization who happened to be in my school that day. And they heard this poem. They're just like, yo, we need to talk to you. Yeah. And they're just like, yo, they just started sending me out to things around the community to do that one poem that they heard. And then after a while, people are like, yo, you got anything else? So I had to write a next poem, and that's really how it started. It was never something that I wanted to do, but it was, I guess, what I was called to do.
I hear you. So that was not the plan at all.
Absolutely not. There actually was no plan. So I was one of those young people with no plan.
Yeah.
So this came at a time when it was really necessary. Yeah. And just to add a piece, like when you sent me the address for when we're going to be doing the recording. Yeah. Only the old school followers of mine would know this, but there's a gym in the basement of the building here. And when I was starting out, there was actually nowhere to produce events. So I used to produce my events in the gym.
Wow.
In the basement of this building. So we would bring in a band, and mans would come, in their dress pants and a nice shirt, and ladies would be in their dresses, and you'd be listening to a singer singing to the band on your right, and on the left is a man on a treadmill. And it was just one of those things where it's like, you know what? If there's no door of opportunity, you make a door.
You make the door.
You just make something happen. So I mean, when I saw the address, I was like, that's a very historical address in terms of my life story and my development, because a lot of things happened in this building.
That's amazing. What's the chances of that, eh?
Yeah, that's just how things work. Yeah,
that's full circle. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Wow, in the basement you started. So we're talking about, this was 93 is when you said, okay, let's go into this full time. Yeah. So I guess you were always a good writer, but you've never seen taken writing to that type of level before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I was a good writer. I was just lazy. Yeah. As a young person, I didn't really try in school. I was just doing what bare minimum to kind of get by and that sort of thing. And, then this came along and it kind of gave me an opportunity to actually, do something. And there were other people at the time, Little X, who's Director X now, people like Black Cat, Gemini, Motion, a lot of people who were, kind of doing their thing that I could look at and be like, oh, okay, all right, this is what it is. Okay. then I just kind of jumped into it, and I'm still here going.
Yeah. And what made you actually form your company up from the root?
I think it was out of necessity, because again, there weren't a lot of opportunities. There weren't open mics. There weren't things that we were welcome to be at as young Black kids at the time. A lot of people who were established poets, they didn't like how we wrote, how we spoke. They didn't like the topics we were speaking about. Yeah. So a lot of doors were closed for us. And as I've always been of the mindset that, all right, if they don't want you to walk in their door, you just make it a door for yourself and bring your own people through it. Yeah. And I started up from the roots just to do that, to just start giving a platform to up and coming artists like myself, so that we would actually have a place where we could come together and just share and grow and develop as artists.
That makes sense, because to even say, okay, I'm going to start out as a poet, which isn't really something popular per se, so there's not a lot of outlets, and then say, okay, I need a company to produce this. And you figure, you look around, why not me? Let me do what I'm going to do. Yeah. And then you just took it from there. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's... and again, it's one of those things where as a young person, I didn't really have a template. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. Everything was trial and error. You just got to just jump in and try and figure it out. But, it was something that was so needed that everyone was really positive towards it, because, people realized what it was, and they realized that there weren't a whole lot of, opportunities out there for, people to actually just come out and try to be artists.
Yeah. That's amazing, because even the fact that you did that, because what was your first production, or what was the first thing you did under the company?
We started a series called Black Love, which was what we did here in the gym downstairs. Right. And it was a show all about just getting, poets, singers, dancers, and the theme was just love. Yeah. And they would all just come together, and I mean, we would pack like hundreds of people into the gym. I'm sure it was a fire hazard or something, but we would just pack hundreds of people in, and they were just so hungry to like just see their friends perform, and it was that series lasted for years. We kept on doing that series, and then from there we kind of grew into other things as new ideas would come about, or as I started to travel and tour and meet different artists, and I'd be like, oh, I got to figure out a way to get you from where you're at to Toronto, and that sort of thing. So everything kind of evolved from that initial spark.
That makes sense, because especially then there was no internet, or wasn't popular at that time, so it was all word of mouth. And what a lot of us were watching back then in the early 90s was like Cosby Show, Different World, 227 and stuff. So I'm pretty sure stuff like that was inspirational to you, as in they're good actors, they're good poets, they had everybody on the show, but we don't have anywhere in Toronto to do something like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a void here. I know Black Cat's show that he used to do called All Truth Spoken, or Poetry in Motion, was a really big show, and he would have, at that time, like Cardinal Official and Socrates and all these people would go, and sometimes they would do hip hop, sometimes they would just do the lyrics to whatever they were doing, and that was the predecessor to what I was going to do. So when Black Cat decided he didn't want to do his shows anymore, that's really when I took over things and said, all right, let me start. And, even when him and I connect, he always, respects the fact that I took it from where he left it and just reimagined it and did some whole different things, outside of the realm of what he was doing. It wasn't just saying, oh, this is what he's doing, I'm just going to continue it, but just totally make it my, my own thing.
Which makes sense, because when you're in a realm with somebody, you want to make sure that if I'm going to step into the space, I bring something to it also. So there's a brick laid already, so I need to come and lay my brick instead of just sitting on the brick, which would make you unique in what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, it's one of those things that I think a lot of times people struggle with. I mean, there's a thing happening right now, actually just down the street, called Rise Poetry, where some young people get together every Monday, and it's like maybe a couple hundred young kids just get together, and they're singers, dancers, hip hop artists, and it's a young poet who started it up, and they run this show every Monday down at the Burroughs Hall Community Center. And for me, when they were just starting to really get popular, people are like, oh, aren't you, threatened by this thing that's going on now, this, the young people coming up? I'm like, being threatened doesn't really make sense. If these young people are doing something, it's my job to mentor them. It's my job to be like, all right, here's what's come before you. Here's what the situation is. Let me help you bring it to a next place. Because, you know, at my stage and age and point in life, you know, I'm kind of locked into how I see things. Yeah. And as young people coming up, you know, in a world where they've only known, you know, digital stuff. They've only known the internet. They've only known cell phones. They've only known a black president, all of these kinds of things. They see the world completely different, right? So it's not for me to compete with them. I can't. Because
it wouldn't make sense.
You come from two completely different worlds. What's important is that what I have, I give to them and allow them to push it forward and for them to respect who has come and laid the groundwork for them to be able to do what they're doing. And if we create that kind of relationship, then everybody benefits. And I think a lot of times in a lot of our industries, businesses, we don't really have an idea or a plan for how we pass things on to the next generation. We're so tied to holding on to everything that we just die with knowledge and we die with all of this stuff for absolutely no reason. And every generation has to restart. And that's why we're constantly in the same place. And I think if more of us, in whatever generation we're in, whatever it is that we're doing, if we actually look to see who are the young people interested in what I'm doing and how can I bring them along and not be worried about if they pass me. You want them to pass you. They're supposed to pass you.
Their job is to see what you've done and then build upon it. Just like, as you said, Black Cat opened the door for you. You've seen it, and then you built upon it. Dwayne now opened the door for us. We'll see it and build upon it and keep it moving.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
So I don't compete with the young people. It doesn't make any sense. I only compete with me. That's it.
But the good thing with young people, as you said, they see things differently. So you're going to teach them stuff, but as well, they're going to teach you stuff also.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
But you have to make sure that you're teachable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes, again, you know, you have 20 years experience in something, you feel you know it all. And the minute you know it all, you don't know anything. You just admit you don't know anything. You know what I mean? So these young people, they're coming up and they have a whole different orientation to things. And I'm just like, all right, let me sit back and let y'all teach me some stuff. I'll give you everything I have. Y'all teach me some stuff too. And that's the only way to, you know, to stay relevant. You know, like this is 26 years now that I've been living off of poetry. Who does this? You know what I mean? It's like, insane. So, you know, I tell that to people, they're like, how on earth do you live off of poetry for 26 years?
In Canada.
In Canada, right? There's no media outlet. There's no nothing. There's no infrastructure, right? But I found a way. So, you know, I can't be there and be like, well, the young people don't have value to me. It's just like, no, you guys are going to see things and be able to show me some different ways to still stay relevant with young people, with youth culture and all of these kinds of things, so that you don't just end up being the old guy in the club or the old dinosaur guy or whatever, right? You know what I mean?
You're still relevant. You know what I mean? Even, 26 years. And then when you get to 46 years, you're going to look back at 26 years and think you were doing something and realize you didn't even start yet. When you get to 50 years, it's, okay, you know what? I did something. And would you still consider the scene somewhat an underground type of scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty underground. I think there really isn't that much happening right now. I mean, it has its ebbs and flows and stuff. So there are times when it's really popular. There's times when it's not as popular. And I mean, your thing as an artist is trying to figure out is how you survive the different ebbs and flows and that sort of thing. That's why it's always good to have other things to do and other things to fall back on and that sort of thing. But right now, there really isn't a whole lot happening. There's definitely been times when there were like more shows, more opportunities, more things that are consistently happening. And right now, there's a bit of a void. And I feel, within the next few years, there'll be another resurgence of, voices coming up.
Okay, so you're saying a void because you don't find that there's too many artists involved in the scene right now? That's what has it kind of quiet. There's only the top tier or people trying to break in. There's no real main body to hold it up right now? That's what you find is going on?
Yeah, there's no real middle ground per se. So, I mean, the Rise Poetry thing that I mentioned that happens every Monday, it's a lot of young people, they come out, and then there's really nothing, and then there's my, When Brothers Speak or When Sisters Speak, which is the top shows in North America. So, in the between that, there's a big gap of what's really going on that's consistent. There's a little one off here, one off there, but things that are actually really consistent that people can go out. Like if somebody said, hey, you know what, I want to go hear some poetry, like where would they go? There's nowhere to go.
There's no
right?
that bar or lounge, okay, every Tuesday night this is what's going to happen.
So that doesn't exist at the moment. Yeah.
All right. And what do you think it would take to actually bring something like that into play right now in the modern Toronto that we're in right now?
I mean, it really just takes somebody to do it, to put it on. I think the problem is that, when you look at the ebbs and flows, you also have to look at the artists as well. Yeah. There's a lot of poets out there that are boring, that suck, right? So it's like sometimes you kind of have to wait until they lose their luster, they lose their desire for it, and they move on to something else, and you'd be like, all right, finally, now we can start the thing again, what I mean? Because it's like, when these people are there, and they don't realize that, when you go out and you're not entertaining and somebody's there, they don't want to come back again.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like there's only so many times you can go up and try to save the day and whatever, and then it just becomes about you, and I never want it to be about me. Mm-hmm. So it's like sometimes it's like when you don't have enough people to pull from, then it's hard to even establish something that's even a monthly thing or whatever, because it's like you need consistent people to be able to, so that when people know, hey, if I come here and I spend $5, $10 or whatever, I'm going to hear some good stuff when I'm here.
It makes sense, you know what I mean? And I guess somebody like you, do you do any mentorship program where you say, okay, you know what? I have a good handle on what I'm doing. I've been doing this for a while now. You say, okay, you know what? I'm going to bring in some people in the fold and train them. What's to do? Okay, don't do that, do this. Okay, you're good at that, but try this instead. Where do you stand with something like that?
Yeah, I don't have a formal program that I do, but the young man who runs the Rise Poetry, I mentor him. So we get together, once every few months or whatever, and we just talk about ideas, things that he's going through, where he's at, and I kind of, give advice. And him and I are actually working on creating a festival for this summer. And I pitched the idea to him, and I said, it's important with the position that I'm in and the position that you're in, that we actually work together and create this thing where we can bring the older and the younger together and actually show that we're actually working together for the benefit of everybody. So, I mean, him and I have that project that we're working on right now. And then I have a few other artists, about 3 or 4 that I mentor as well. And so if there's different things that I can't do, then I reach out to them to do it on my behalf, and they get paid and that sort of thing. And I can push things over to them because I know they've been under my tutelage, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm just like, hey, if you book this person, you're good. All right? So you don't have to worry about that. So.
All right. So I guess you, even if you're not there physically, you have a finger in what's going on. You always have a finger on the pulse.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And the good thing with it, especially somebody like you that's so in tune with the younger generation, the younger people, especially in Toronto, your feet are always on the ground. Somebody like you, I think, would be the best person to at least entertain this question. In the last, at least, say, year, the gun violence has really spiked in Toronto. What do you think the problem is? And then if we know what the problem is, what do you think the solution is?
I mean, I think the problem, and I don't want to get, cliche into a lot of things, but the problem is, in order to kill someone, you have to believe that person is less than human.
Okay.
In order to believe that this person is less than human and put your life on the line, you also believe that you are less than. What tells our young people that they are less than?
Yeah.
And that starts early. Yeah. That starts early in life. Sometimes it starts with, no male figure. Sometimes it starts in the educational system. Sometimes it starts with what you watch on TV. When do you see people who look like you in a positive light, right? So subconsciously, these ideas of being less than are there.
Okay.
A lot of the popular music that we listen to tells us that we are even music made by people who look like me tells me we are less than.
Yeah, they're just amplifying that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So then you get into a point where in the back of your head something says I'm less than.
Yeah.
And then you look at society and people have more than you. People are doing better than you. If you come from an environment that, isn't well-to-do, we live in a capitalistic world. In a capitalistic 100%. World, you're told that your value is based on what you have.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you have something and I don't have something, and if you're somebody and I'm nobody and I want to be somebody, then I'm going to take what you have.
And then now I will in turn become a somebody.
And now I'm somebody.
With that way of thinking.
Right?
Yeah.
But I'm somebody for a short period of time because eventually you're going to come back for what I took from you. Right? And that's how a lot of this stuff just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a mentality that it's hard to put your finger on because it happens so subtly.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of the times, you know, you ask some of these kids' parents, their parents would never think this would be my kid.
Yeah.
Right? But the stuff happens so subtle and so easy. And then it's like, yo, you want to even at you know, you're at school at lunchtime, your friends go out for lunch, you don't have no money to buy lunch.
I know that.
Right?
Feeling,
And you're just like,
me.
yo, everybody's eating it, and you're the one person who's there begging people for French fries and this and that, and that's eating away at you, eating away at you, and you're just feeling like nobody.
Yeah.
And then somebody says, yo, you know what, you could do this and be somebody.
Planted the seed right there.
The seed is
then
there.
They just start to water it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then so that's really ultimately what it is.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the issues are internal within our community, and a lot of the solutions are internal within our community. You know, when we look at solutions, it's like, you know, people talk about, oh, no father in the home or whatever. That's neither here nor there, because if you're a man and I'm a man, it doesn't matter if there's a father in the home, there's a father in society. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
I walked here with my daughter. I'm not just her father. If I see some other young people wilding out, I'm supposed to say, yo, Bridget.
Yeah.
Like, what are you really doing right now? You know what I mean?
Back to where it takes a village.
Yeah.
We're part of this village.
Absolutely.
It's now a global village, but we are part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, so we're responsible if we're not gonna to step up and be like, yo, call a spade and speak out when certain things need for us to speak out on it, then we're also part of the problem. We're complicit in what is happening, right? So because, you know, I go to schools and I have this rapport with young people, enough times, you know, I go into different, you know, areas of the city to do workshops and stuff like that. And you see the kids there or whatever, and your head tells you that because of where you are, these are bad kids.
Yeah.
And these kids just need someone to be like, yo, Bridget, what's going on, man?
Just talk to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know
Figure
what I
out
mean?
what is really going on.
Talk to them without judgment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without already that preconceived idea of who this person is.
Not talking down to them either. It's like, okay, I know clearly I'm older, you know I'm older too, but just talk to me one-on-one and let's try to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many of these kids are responsive to it. I mean, some of them will cuss you and whatever. I mean, and I think a lot of us kind of fear, you know, that or whatever. And we fear a lot of our young people. But, you know, my experience is like when you come at young people a certain way, they just respond. There's just like, all right, this guy's not a threat to me. You know what I mean? It's just like, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? Because more times it's like, you have to be hard, you have to be tough and all of these things. And I think, you know, the other part of the equation too is that, you know, we have this idea of manliness.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, the manliness is the bravado, the toughness, and it's in the hip hop, it's in the dance hall, it's in all of this kind of stuff, you know, how you treat women, the violence, the this and the that. And then you have young people who are getting shot and killed in the streets, and these same young men don't have an outlet to grieve, to mourn, because how do you mourn when you're not when you have no feelings?
Yeah, when you're tough.
Yeah.
What are you crying for?
Yeah, what is that, right?
Yeah.
So many young people are ticking time bombs, right? Of emotions that are built up inside that they have no outlet for how to get rid of.
Yeah.
And something pops off and bam, here it comes.
Yeah.
And this person who you thought, not my kid, who didn't have an outlet, now is wilding out.
Becomes your kid.
Right. So that's why for me, it's like I work with young people to give them outlets.
Yeah.
You dance? All right, you come here and dance. You want to write a poem?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to save your life. Right? And I've understood how many lives have been touched, how many lives have been saved simply by having an outlet.
Yeah.
Right? And when you don't have that outlet, it's easy to just go wild out and be like, yo, let me go shoot up here or there or whatever, because I'm nobody, so whatever, you know what I mean? Somebody gets me, I get arrested, who cares? Whatever, you know what I mean?
Society goes on.
Yeah,
You keep ticking.
doesn't matter.
What do you think would be a short-term solution for what's going on then?
I mean, short-term solution, I don't think that exists because this is a problem that can only be addressed in a long-term kind of way, right? There's nothing that we can do and say, all right, we're going to do this and all the shootings are going to stop in the next 6 weeks. It's just not going to happen because, street justice moves faster than we can even think, right?
Trust me.
Things is being plotted right now, right? That we don't even know. We're going to hear about things on the news on Saturday that's being plotted right now, right?
A lot of people think that a lot of those problems just happen right there, right then, but no. This one, there was planning.
Yeah, they just planning. They know somebody's schedule. They know when they're coming home, what bus they're on, all this kind of. There's surveillance that goes into these things. I'm just like, you know what I mean? It's like, so these aren't often stupid people. These are people who have skills, but they're applying the skills to the wrong things, right? These are marketable skills. But you just don't even realize that there's a market for that in the legal world. Right? You don't even realize.
Because you haven't been exposed to that to even know that, you know what, I could transfer this skill right here over here and I could go to sleep at night. And nobody's looking for me.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think the short term, there really isn't such thing as a short term. There's a long-term investment, a long-term shift in our consciousness as a community where we realize that this is all of our problem. Because we all know that when we hear about a shooting on the news, in every black household, everyone sits there and says...
You're taking the thoughts out of... Continue. You're taking the thought right out of my head. Continue.
All right, so everybody sits there and says, please don't be black. Please don't be black. Please don't be black.
Number one thing.
Yeah, and the minute they say suspect or whatever, young black male, gosh.
You get it.
The fact that you have that response means that you're invested.
Yeah.
So if you're invested, what are you going to do about it?
Makes sense.
So don't be, it's another black... and don't do nothing about it. This don't make no sense. That means you have a role to play.
Yeah. What's the whole point of acknowledging that there's a problem and you're not trying to fix this problem at all? Just, I'll just leave it alone.
Yeah, because everybody thinks that, the police are going to do it. Everyone believes that it's just in this area or it's just these kind of kids until it happens to somebody that you know.
Yeah.
Till it hits your family, until there's mistaken identity, until you're on the Danforth and you were just eating the ice cream and something pops off. So... everybody thinks it's somebody else's issue.
Yeah.
Until it hits them, and then when it hits you, you're on social media, you want GoFundMe, you want this, you want all these kind of things, but you didn't care before, right? Until it hit you.
Prevention? How about prevention is always better than cure?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, again, prevention is really creating opportunities for young people.
Yeah.
Right? Giving them jobs, giving them internships, giving them apprenticeships, being able to be like, yeah, you know what? That thing that you're doing right now that's illegal, let me show you how you can do this legally. Let me show you how you can move from where you are to a whole other way of life. I was working with this young man, not working with him, but I was doing a thing downtown, like in Regent Park some years ago. And, I was kind of asking them, like, what do you guys want out of life? Because so many of them were just so misguided. And he's just like... man, all I want to do is just like move out of here and like live in Ajax or somewhere, man. Like
something that simple.
Yeah, and all of his friends laughed at him like, yo, what's wrong with this guy? And all of his friends probably were on a path to being in jail or dead. Yeah. And all he wanted was to just move from where he was to some place that like had a lawn.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like, it's that simple. So how can I show you how to do that?
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
It makes sense, but you see, this is where I'm kind of conflicted when it comes to opportunity. We grew up without the internet. If you didn't know somebody that knew somebody or had an encyclopedia or something, you just didn't know. Now knowledge is right here. The same thing that a lot of the young kids are using to show the money, phone, smoke the weed and stuff is the same thing that could teach you a lot of knowledge. So when people say there's not really no opportunity, I'm the one to say, nah, there's too much opportunity. If you just took 5 minutes to Google something, instead of Googling madness, use that same Google and Google something that makes sense. What's that problem there?
Well, I think it comes down to the world that we live in right now, again, is based on instant gratification.
100%.
Right? So it's like to Google and research. Like what is that? What do you mean? So wait, so I'm gonna research it and then nothing's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Like instantly. Right? You know what I mean? It's like, I could go on Instagram, I could flip through, I could look at 2 girls and I could feel nice, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's instant.
Yeah.
But go on Google and research.
Nope.
Why would I do that? You know what I mean? So we've built an element of laziness into young people that we accept as being okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even back in our day, you know, if you're listening to Nas and Nas says something in a song and you're like, yo, I don't even know what he means, you go and find a book and be like, yo, let me look and see what this guy's talking about. Yeah. Now it's a different era of music. Like, nobody says nothing that you have to go look up. You might have to be like, yo, what does that mean on the streets or whatever? But other than that, no one's really, you know, talking on those kinds of things. But it's like the young people just want everything to be spoon-fed to them, and they don't understand, you know, how important work is. Having a work ethic.
Work and patience.
Yeah, and you know, when I go to schools and I talk to young people, I'm like, y'all would die if you had to be farmers. Because your mentality is plant the seed and then go sit at the table and the food is coming.
By tomorrow morning, it's ready.
Yeah, but a farmer knows you plant the seed, you're not seeing nothing for like 8 months.
Yeah.
You got to go out there, till the soil, pour water on it, hope it rains, all these kinds of things, and then you reap a harvest.
Yeah.
And these kids out here just want to throw down a seed and put on a bib and have a knife and fork and be like, yo, it's time to eat. And that's not how life works, right? So we're also not doing a good job at teaching kids how life works.
And I think I agree with you wholeheartedly, because we could sit here and say, okay, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. But what are we actually, with our actions, what are we showing anybody with our actions? And that's really what it comes down to. What are you doing to help fix this problem? Because we know there's a problem. So what are your actions? What are you doing?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, even with my daughter, you know, I bring her to stuff. I make her volunteer at my events. You know, I'll sometimes give her money for it or whatever, because I want her to see, you got to work for this stuff, you know? And it's not everything that I do, I like to do it.
Yeah.
But you like nice stuff. So I have to do it so you can get the nice stuff, right? And it's, you know, until she's old enough to be working for herself and really understand the value of money, this is the only way that she's going to understand that, to get things, you have to do stuff. You got to go out there and you have to work. You have to go out there and hustle. You got to wake up when you rather be in bed. Like, this is just what it is.
Discipline.
Yeah, it's the discipline that gets you the things that you want, right? But we have, you know, these young people who just have this mindset that, the stuff that I want is just going to come to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, come from where?
It's going to come through the Instagram screen. I'm going to see it, like it, and it's just going to appear in my lap.
Yeah, like, it's like, what are you talking about? And you know, then when you look at how we transfer knowledge from generation to generation, you have people in, you know, other communities where they have a business or they have this or whatever, and then that just gets passed down to the son or the daughter, and then that just gets passed down because they groom them to, hey, hard work, this is what we do, blah, 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 pass it on. Every generation for us, we're starting over again. We're not passing on any skills, anything for that next generation.
Any business, any idea, something that's second and third generation, especially from a Canadian standpoint.
Yeah.
Because Americans, they've been there longer, so then they kind of get things. Your work ethic is way crazier than ours. They get it. But from a Canadian standpoint, it's really different. You know what I mean? And they don't get it. That's why even now, I want to ask you, okay, there's problems, there's shooting and all that. What's the attraction to a gun? What is it that a gun in particular? Because you could stab somebody, you could run them over, you could hit them with a rock, but it's this gun. What is it about the gun?
Well, first thing, with a knife, you have to be close to somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Most of these guys are cowards. They're too scared for all that. You know what I mean? So a gun, you could be like far off and be like, yo, pow, 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 and just run.
Sniper,
you know what I mean?
And
it's and the danger for the rest of us is that these guys aren't going to the gun range practicing whatever. Right. So when they decide to pop off, if we're in the area, that's on everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everybody has to be taking this stuff seriously, because anywhere that these guys see somebody that they're trying to find, everybody else is in danger. Right? No matter who we are, what we look like.
It doesn't make sense, though.
Whatever, right?
Yeah. And
you have to also think that when you have young people, or people in general, who are powerless, and if I pulled out a gun right now, I have the power in the room.
And that's really what it comes down to.
And that's what it comes down to, because it's like everybody wants to feel like there's somebody, everybody wants to feel powerful, And you're not as powerful when you hold a knife.
Yeah.
Because I might pull out a bigger knife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you pull out the gun first, then it's like, hey, you got the power in the room.
But
you know
what
I mean?
I try to tell people, it's like this. Okay, if only one gun was made and you're the only human being with it, you have all the leverage in the world. But if there's 10 of us in this room and all 10 of us have a gun, now we're right back down to zero. None of us have a gun because that's really what it comes down to. So I guess from the understand that say, listen, this is not as fancy and as powerful as you really think it is because there's so much of them out here. It's just you in this time being in this little circle here, you have the power now. But really and truly, that's no power, brother.
No, it isn't, but it's the illusion of power, right? And when you live a life where you're powerless, the illusion of power is huge power. Right? It's like, that's a big thing. You know what I mean? There's girls out there who you say you have a gun, just, you know what I mean? It's this cool thing. Oh, he's the bad boy, he's this and that or whatever. And that's the warped part of the mentality of what is happening, in our, under the layers of our society, right? With that whole underground culture that is out there. And it's again, it's fueled by the music, it's fueled by the videos, it's fueled on World Star Hip Hop and all these kinds of things or whatever, and it's glorified as this stuff is cool. But I have gone to the hospital and seen a young man that I used to work with, and his head was twice the size it could be and was bandaged up because he got shot in his head. I know what that looks like. Right? So when you're just watching World Star and these things, you don't see the reality
of what
this thing can do. You know what I mean? So I never even want to see a next person looking like that again. And that young man, he didn't make it. And it was just like, you know what? Just to see the damage that can be done, by this thing that people are taking so lightly is horrendous.
I think there should be more people like you in the areas that actually say, okay, come, let's go on some excursions. Like when you watch A&E, what's that jail show called? Scared Straight. Yeah. If they had programs like that where they say, okay, you guys like this, no problem, because some people like badness, some people like church, no problem. But if you like badness, let me give you a glimpse to what could happen. Carry them to the jail, carry them to the funeral home, carry them to a funeral where a mom just lost her son or lost her daughter, and see how she feels. And remember, this is most likely another black mom, so it's like looking at your mom. Would you want your mom to be acting like that? And that's really what I think it is. There's more people like you are needed in the city to really scared straight.
Well, I think a lot of them too glamorize jail, glamorize the idea of like they want to get their stripes, you know what I mean? And when you can say, I've been there, it's like this badge of honor. So I mean, it's like I always hurt. I do a lot of, not a lot, but I visit the youth detention centers. I visit the jails, the prisons. I go in there and I talk to the people or whatever. And it's just like to see how many people who look like me are in there. You know what I mean? I'm just like, man, y'all, I don't know if y'all thought this is what it is, but like talking to them and just hearing the remorse that a lot of them have, hearing, them realizing like, you know what? Life sucked on the outside, but it didn't suck this bad. This is way worse. You know what I mean? Like, and actually, like for me, though, the worst part, like when people ask me about, going to the jails and stuff, I say the worst part for me is when the door closes behind me, because the sound of that door is like nothing else I've ever heard.
And the echo it lasts forever in your brain.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know I'm coming out. Next few hours, I'm walking out. You know what I mean? I have an escort to walk me out. I have an escort while I'm in here. This is, no big thing for me other than what it does to your psyche to see human beings behind bars. But for some of these guys, when they hear that clink, clink and that echo, they're not coming out. And not anytime soon, right? They might go in and, they know Instagram, and then they come out, no Instagram, no even on Instagram again. You know what I mean? Like, what was that? Where you been? You know what I mean? But so much of their life now is just spent confined to this like concrete thing where someone tells them when you can go outside and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it is horrible. to see, for my spirit, to actually see people locked up.
100% agree.
So, it takes a lot for me when I have to go to the jails and the prisons and talk to people. And, even when I go there, it's, I don't judge nobody. I don't ask anybody what they did. Like, for me, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm here, and in these few moments, I want to try to give you something that even if you're in here, you can use it.
Yeah.
And if you get out, you can use it. You know what I mean? And that's my whole thing, is just try to uplift people wherever they're at. I just try to uplift people. I just try to give people some positivity that they could see something else. Because even when they're in the jail, I say, hey, where you're at isn't who you're at.
Yeah.
This isn't who you are necessarily. You know what I mean? So you can do things in here to change your circumstances, right? Whether that means your circumstances when you're inside or your potential circumstances when you get outside. But use this time while you're here and do something.
Yeah.
Change yourself. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
And sometimes, you're going to come back out and end up back in the exact same neighborhood that you were in, around the exact same people or whatever. So what can make you make a different decision, right? Because some people, they hate their time in jail and come out and do the exact same things that's going to put them right back in there.
What was the whole point?
Nothing, right? So it's like, what can I say to you that might potentially help you see your value so that you don't end up back in here again?
Which makes sense, which brings me to another thing, mental health, especially in our community and the men, our boys in our community. I don't think as Black people, only now we're starting to have this conversation around mental health, what you're feeling, how you're thinking. But I think a lot of these people that's doing a lot of the unnecessary crime, because I get it, you might feel disrespected, so you got to go deal with that. Somebody came and disrespected your people or hurt your people, so you got to go. I get that, But a lot of them, when you look in their eyes, you could see something's not right here. It's that mental health. What are you seeing when you go on the road when it's concerned with mental health, especially in the Black community?
Well, I mean, it's definitely been a huge problem. I actually used to work with the Center for Addiction and Mental Health.
Okay.
And if you would go down to their Queen Street facility and actually see how many people from our community are patients in that facility.
Okay.
And nobody visits them or whatever, because it's like mental health is so taboo that if you kind of lose your mind a bit, you're outcast, you're just there.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the saddest thing to just walk through and see so many people who look like my relatives, your relatives, or whatever, just there struggling with whatever's demons or whatever's happening, in their heads. And I think that, when we look at our society, we have to look at where a lot of this stuff comes from. Racism plays a part in how we see ourselves, the thoughts that start to go through, our heads and that sort of thing. I mean, when you walk into an environment that you're unfamiliar with and you say to yourself, well, do these people see me as a person or see my color? The fact that you're even having that thought,
that's a problem.
Is problematic, but it's a thought that we all have when we walk into an area that we're not familiar with. And so all of these things that we are constantly thinking that other people don't have to think about weigh on our mental health.
For sure.
And then, we have weed and different things that also act on, a lot of these things as well. And I have no issue with anybody smoking weed or whatever, but you also have to know that if you're on the borderline around your mental health, these things can bring it to a whole other level.
Not everybody's intended to drink alcohol, smoke weed, or whatever the case is, because they're not going to be affected the same way. How it affects me might not be the same way it affects you, and it's just you have to know that. And that's the real difference there.
Yeah.
Smoke if you want to smoke, it's legal. No, that's not a problem. Drink if you want to drink. But if your body, especially when you're 14, 15, and 16, trying to be cool, where your body's still maturing, and then you're dumping in all of this on top of the fast food too, on top of what you're watching, on top of what you're listening, on top of what you're feeling, that's just one explosion just waiting to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of these things weigh on the mental health of our young people and our community as a whole.
It's serious out there right now. And that's why I'm glad somebody like you came into the podcast where, it's an entertainment report. We're here for entertainment. We're going to get into all that. But we could also get deep too and talk about what's going on. After this is done, we say, okay, good night. we still need to walk through this door and live in a real world, which is Toronto.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to really figure out what's going on. That's amazing there. All right, let's get to some of your accomplishments here.
All right.
I know that you have published 10 books. How did you do something, especially coming from a place where writing was not even a thing to you in the first place? Walk us through the process, how you went from book 1 to book 10, and give us some of the names and what they're about.
All right, so we're actually up to 12 books now. So
12?
Update what's on.
We passed that about 2 years ago.
And so here's the thing. The very first book that I did was just a small book of like 15 poems in it. And that same organization, the Tropicana Community Services Organization, they put up the money. They lent me the money to do that book. Somebody who worked on staff there designed it, all that kind of stuff for me or whatever. And I just had to pay them back after I sold the book.
Yeah.
So so that came out. That was called Straight from the Roots. That came out in 1995.
Yes,
I saved the money from that, and the next year put out another book on my own. This one called The Revolution Starts Within.
Okay.
And I don't even include those two in the 12. Right? Those were just like this early
testers.
Or whatever.
Let's see what. And so what was that second book? It was The Revolution.
Called The Revolution Starts Within.
And what was the premise of that?
So most of the books have just been collections of poetry.
Okay.
So the majority have been collections of poetry. I have one that's English and French, where the poems are translated into French, and that one came out in Belgium. I have 2 children's books, and I have 1 memoir.
Okay.
Right. So everything else is just a collection of poems.
And what actually made you say, you know what? Doing it live is cool, but let me do something where you could actually take it home. What made you decide to write books?
Well, I mean, it's always a matter of finding different revenue streams.
Yeah.
So, people would see me at events and they'd be like, "Oh, do you have a CD or do you have a book or whatever?" And I was like, "No," and I was just like, "Man, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table right here." So I'm just like, "All right, let me fix that."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm always there's always a new book, a new album or something coming so that I can always feed that desire that people have, and it's also been very good at you can send that stuff, internationally to try to get bookings, different things or whatever, because you just look more serious when you have stuff.
It's a big, it's a business card, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean? It works both ways. Business card, plus it's something good to read and take home.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, that was it. I mean, the majority, 2 of the 12 were published by other people.
Okay.
And I self-published the other 10.
Okay, so you see, I'm not really versed with a book. When you say published by other people opposed to self-published, what's the real difference?
Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
So when I say published by other people, they pay for it. They put up the money.
Okay. In layman's terms.
Yeah, they did the promo. They did all that kind of stuff. So I mean, the one that was translated was one of the ones that was published by other people. So as I said, that was in Belgium. So they brought me to Belgium, and we did a book launch out there and stuff like that. So I worked with a woman in Montreal to do all the translations and that sort of thing. So that was a very interesting and different, kind of experience. And then, from there, all the others, I just kind of, put up the money. I have friends who, do graphic design, do layout, who own printing presses, different things. So you just kind of call on the people that you know, get it done as professionally as possible, and then just get it out there, and hopefully, people resonate with it and they buy it.
Makes sense, because that's a good thing with having a network. Once you have a network, okay, I could call this person here. This person does that. You put it together, and then here we have the finished product, which is a book.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things that I say to kids in high school too. It's like, I've never been the greatest student. Yeah. I didn't want to go to university. My parents made me go to university, and I'm grateful that I did. But most of the people that I work with now, like on my books and all of these things, are people I met in university.
Yep.
Right. So it's like
people are the ROI.
I was in university really networking to find out. I'm just like, well, everybody else here is trying to do something with their life. So these are probably people I need to know. Yep. And just kind of, be like, all right, who are you? What do you do? What are your interests? Who are you? But and really just build a network of people that I know that are really about doing stuff. And even to this day, years later, we still work there. Oh, here's a project. All right, no problem. I got you. And they need something. They come to me. No problem. I got it. Right. And that's just how it is. Right.
Because it's almost like a plug and play.
Yeah, that's it. You know what I mean? So it's like, so the value of higher education isn't necessarily always just the sitting in the class, but it's also who else is here.
Yeah.
That I probably wouldn't have met any other way.
Because we're here for one common goal, which is to learn something, to go out in the world and be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the books, I know you also recorded a few albums. All right, how many albums do you actually have out?
8 albums right now.
8 albums?
Yeah.
Wow.
2 more coming this year.
This year?
Yeah.
So you usually do a 2 a year. They have no schedule. They have a schedule. What's the deal with the albums?
They have no schedule. I mean, I have 5 albums that are just done on my computer, so they'll come out whenever I want to put them out. So I've decided that 2 will come out this year, and the other 3 will come out, whenever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been doing this so long that my first album was a cassette.
Yeah.
So sometimes I go to schools and I'm like, yo, this is my first album right here. And they're like, what is that? You know what I mean? It's like, so, but I just want people to know that it's like, I haven't just arrived here. I've been doing this for a long time.
And you remember the year that your first album came out?
The cassette we did in 1997.
97, eh?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And when we say album, what kind of albums are they?
So the last one that I did was a reggae album. So it's I used a reggae band, and it's just me doing the poems, and there's a reggae band, behind it. So it's like, the same drop leaf rhythm, all these kind of things, or whatever. The band just plays stuff, and I just do a poem over it. So I mean,
that's pretty smart.
The next step from that would be now to start like trying to apply to like reggae festivals and different things or whatever, and just try and head out there like with the band and just kind of like just do some shows.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. I know even you worked on other people's album, like Baby Blue. Did you work on Drake's album, or he worked on yours, or you guys recorded something together?
We were in the studio recording some stuff together. I wrote some interludes for him for his very first mixtape that came out, and it was interesting because like just to see how life progresses, because in what was this, maybe 2005?
Okay.
I think Alicia Keys was here for a World AIDS Day concert, and I was one of the opening acts for that. And he was in the audience.
Yeah.
And he was in the audience with a friend of mine, and he's like, yo, that guy was dope.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
So she gave him my number. And he hit me up and he's like, yo, I saw you at the concert, blah, blah, blah. Can you listen to some of my stuff? So we went down to the studio just for him to play me some of his songs or whatever. And I'm just like, yo, this stuff is dope. So then I'm just like, hey, you know what? Let me write some interludes for this and that. He didn't end up using them, but I'm just like, yeah, it was still just dope to actually see from there where he's become now. You know what I mean? And to see that he had the work ethic, the drive, his music was great from back then, and he's still just doing it, but just doing it on a whole different level right now. You know what I mean? So
that's so crazy. He's in the crowd. Say, hey, I like that guy. That guy happened to be you, and we happened to connect. And then now look at the platforms that he's on right now. That's crazy to even think of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's all life is, man.
Yeah. Even with the Baby Blue stuff, how did that come around?
Well, again, it's like, we were all growing up together, right? So, I mean, back in the day, the big thing was like Windsor Sports Weekend and, and at Western and all these kind of things. So because of who I was, well, everybody booked me, right? Because every sports weekend, wanted the best poets, the best DJs, the best whatever. So Baby Blue would always be there. Dr. J would always be there. Starting from scratch would always be there. I would always be there in the talent show portion. So it's like, because we were always like the ones, it was when they reached out to me, I'm just like, this is a no-brainer. Let's do it.
Makes
because
sense.
It's like, at that time, everybody knew who everybody who would pick up a Baby Blue album knew who Dwayne Morgan was, right? It's just like a synergy thing, because you would see us all because we were that group of young people just doing things at that time. Right?
And what a lot of people don't realize is, if you grew up in Canada in the 80s and 90s, once you've seen another black person, you're just happy to see another black person. We're friends now immediately. You know what I mean? And then now, especially that we're in the arts doing stuff together, so then clearly it's a close-knit community.
Yeah, I mean, it was, people have to understand how different, things were like when we were coming up, because it's like the infrastructure that's in place today, and it's still not even a great infrastructure, didn't exist. You know what I mean? So when I see like Boy Wonder producing all of these things and getting Grammys and all of these things, you used to listen to a song and be like, oh, that's Canadian. Like you could just tell the Canadian had a Fisher-Price
Sonically.
sound to it that no other song on the radio had.
I spoke to somebody about this. Sonically, you could tell right away, even if they're mixing, trying to blend it in. No, this does not sound like that song. Mm-hmm. You could tell.
Yeah, so we've gotten to a point where it's like, now you just don't even know. Now everything is on par. And it's like, so we had to come through that whole phase.
Yeah.
And again, so when I see people again like Maestro and stuff who went from that phase to like where he's at now and stuff, and he's still there and he has the respect that, you know, from people as, yo, this guy's a legend in the game. I think that stuff is so important because people don't know how far, you know, we had to come. And I remember, you know, back in the day, you know, Master T, when I did my first show, invited me onto his show. And this is back when, you know, Much Music played videos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's no videos on Much Music again.
No, it shows.
Right? So, and, you know, he invited me on to talk about it. And I think that was one of the things that led to the success of the shows, just having that platform to talk literally to the whole country.
Yeah.
I had people from Vancouver and different, like, yo, I saw you on TV. And like, yo, that was a big deal because there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, no Instagram. So nobody could see you.
Nope.
Right? But so this guy being like, yo, come on my show. And he brought me on one time, like with the band to perform live on the show. And I'm like, yo, this is an awesome platform. You know what I mean? To just be able to come through. So it was also respecting those people who were in positions to make certain things happen. Right. So, you know, you always have to understand, like when I talk to the young people that I mentor now, and I'm just like, you know, y'all can send, you know, a mass WhatsApp and whatever. I can show you something that's like 10 pages long of phone numbers. And I'm like, I had to dial every one of these phone numbers and be like, hello, is so-and-so there? Whatever. I used to invite people in the mail.
Yeah.
Right? I used to put things in envelope, buy stamps, all these kind of things, sit there for a weekend, seal up things, put them in the mailbox.
Yeah.
To let people know an event was happening, right? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like when I see young people now, and we've kind of talked about this before, and I'm like, you guys have all this stuff that makes this so easy.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do it? Are you being serious?
I guess because they didn't live then, there's nothing to really compare it to. To them, it's just the internet is supposed to be there. Instagram is supposed to be there. This is how it's supposed to go. But us seeing it come from the beginning to where it is, we know different now. That's why I think probably older people are taking more chances on the internet and those stuff right now, opposed to the people that grew up in it. Because we didn't see it before and we said, hey, I could now sit in this little room here and potentially reach thousands of people with a cell phone. Unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely. And even some of my international performances just came from the internet.
Yeah.
Somebody saw something, heard something that they liked, they reached out and they're like, hey, can you come here? I'm like, sure.
For somebody that started in 93, how wild is that to you? That somebody found me on YouTube or sent me an email. I've never seen this person before and booked me to come to a country that I've never been to. How wild is that?
I mean, for me, it's totally wild.
Yeah.
I mean, and even as you said that, because the first real international thing I did was in Germany.
Yeah.
And I assumed that, well, obviously this person is black because of the content of my work and whatever.
Yeah.
And we ended up being the two last people in the airport because I'm looking for some black person and maybe he was looking for some white person. And we walked past each other over and over and over again. And eventually he's like, yo, are you Dwayne? I'm like, yes. And then we're just like, oh, okay, man. Like, well, it was just us and the janitor. And it's like, what's going on? They're going to lock off the airport. You know what I mean? So, so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you don't necessarily know who somebody is, but they heard my work, they liked it, and they're like, yo, we want you to come and do that here. And I'm like, all right, let's go.
That's so crazy. You know what I mean? I know in 2008, you'd put out a DVD called The First 15. Walk us through what the first 15 was like and then what you learned after the 11, because now it's 26.
Yeah.
So what did you learn since putting out that DVD? And what did you learn before that DVD?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because even talking about, respecting the people in the environment, that DVD was produced by Master T. So Master T was like, I told him I was going to do this DVD, and he's like, yo, I want to be a part of it. So, you know, he put the whole thing together for me. We worked on it together, the whole thing, right? Yeah. So he played a big part in that particular project, right? And again, this is stuff where he didn't have to do this.
At all.
Right? But he saw me from the beginning, and he's like, yo, you lasted doing this for 15 years? Yeah. I want to be a part of it.
It only makes sense.
All right, cool. No problem, right? So we did a sit-down interview together, and we put that on the DVD. So the DVD is like, you know, poetry videos, poetry performance, just kind of a look back at, you know, what 15 years has been like. And I usually try to do something special for every 5 years, right? Okay. So that was what I chose to do for 15. So it was really just a matter of commemorating the fact that I'd been there for 15 years doing something that most people said was impossible, and really just highlighting, like showing video footage of me in Europe and different things or whatever, like stuff that people otherwise wouldn't see, right? So that was pretty much what the first 15 years and that DVD was about. And then from there, it was... you know, still writing, still doing a lot of, you know, international things. But a lot shifted once my daughter was born 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And I decided at that point that I wanted to be home more.
Yeah.
Because I would go and I would tour for 3 weeks and be in Europe and just going from city to city, country to country. And I'm just like, you know what? I just want to be home. I don't want to miss stuff with her. You know what I mean? And now that she's older and we could FaceTime and different things, it's easier now. I can get away or whatever, and it's like we can still, you know, connect. And I can show her where I'm at and different things or whatever. But when she was really young, I wanted to be home as much as possible. So a lot of the stuff that I used to do, I let go of after that 15 years. And so the last 11 years has been really looking at how I've changed and how my work has changed, being a parent, being a father, now being actually responsible for someone, because I've always felt responsible for the community.
Yes.
But now I have someone who doesn't care if I'm happy, doesn't care if I had a good day at work, just knows I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And looks to me,
figure it
and
out.
I have to deal with it. You know what I mean? So that direct is, this person is counting on me, you know, and how that changes and affects certain things. And that's led to, you know, the 2 children's books that I've written and that sort of thing, right? So the last 11 years has really been about, you know, my growth and development into a man, into a father, with a daughter.
Yeah.
Because again, it's different when you have a son.
For
right?
sure. 100%.
A lot of issues come up when you have a daughter that you got to figure out, right? Whether it be issues with her mom, issues, you know, with other women that you've dealt with in your, all sorts of things that you got to worry about. Hey, I don't want to pass anything on. You know, I don't want, you know, if I'm hurt or damaged in some kind of way, how do I make sure that doesn't go on to her? I had to look at, you know, I grew up in a family where we didn't talk about love. We didn't talk about feelings, emotions. No, I love you and all this kind of nonsense. Like, what are you talking about, right? So, you know, so I wrote poems about, you know, making the commitment to myself to tell her that I love her as often as I can, and the difficulties of that when you grew up never hearing it.
Yeah.
So what example do I have to draw from of how I'm supposed to do this when I never saw it, right? And it's important that I bring this up, because a lot of times people will say, well, how do you expect someone to be a great dad when they didn't have a father figure? Well, if you didn't have a father figure, there's still a next man you could look at.
Exactly.
Who's doing it the way you want to do it.
And you know what it felt like not to have one, so you're going to try your best not to do anything that's going to bring up those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? He wasn't there, so nobody took me to the game. So, okay, there's games, you're going to go to the game. So hopefully you're now not acting like the missing father.
And I think that's why things like, you know, the Cosby Show and stuff is so important, because it actually showed us a way. It showed us an example that many of us didn't have.
Yeah, no, at
right?
all.
And be like, oh, you know what? We could do this.
Yeah.
We could actually have kids who want to talk to us, who, you know, want to play with us and different things and share things with us. And we don't have to be so hard all the time and disciplinarian and things like that. And we could actually just chill, and they're going to be okay. You know what I mean? And we can actually give them some things that we never had.
Yeah.
And we can't use I never got it as an excuse because it's an excuse we hear all the time in the community.
Well, I didn't have it.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
So then that's just supposed to absolve you of everything.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have it, that's okay.
Yeah, but if you didn't have it,
Yeah.
but you know that it exists, like I don't have $1 million in my bank account, but I know it exists.
Yep.
So I'm going to try and get it because I think I would like that.
Makes sense.
It's no different. You know what I mean? And this is a person that you created.
Yeah.
You're more invested than this money that's getting printed. You don't even know where it's getting printed. You know what I mean?
You're just trying to
At least you know this is your youth. So I mean, it's an excuse that we use, but again, we have to hold each other accountable for these things because the kids are falling by the wayside. None of them asked to be here.
Yeah.
Right? So this is our responsibility to deal with certain things and to man up and be like, yo, if I didn't have it, and I know that the example I'm drawing from is a bad example, find a better example.
Only makes sense.
Because at the end of the day, you can't say, because I didn't have a father, I ruined this kid's life.
Yeah.
The kid didn't ask to be here. The kid
Fix it.
Yeah, the kid just wants to be the best, wants the best of you, right? And if you give your best knowing what you know to be the right thing, they end up all right.
Makes sense.
You know,
It makes sense to me. All right, let's go back to 2008. That seemed to be a really big year for you because that's the year you also won the Harry Jerome Award. And that's a big, big, big prestigious award.
Well, that was actually in 1998.
98?
98, I won that 20 years ago. So 98, I won the African Canadian Achievement Award and the Harry Jerome in the same year. I think I'm the only person who's ever won both in the same year. And I don't know, maybe it was premature to get them, at that point, but it's like, I was hustling. I was hustling. And I mean, and I had applied for the Harry Jerome in 97 and I didn't win it.
Okay.
And I taped the rejection letter to my closet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll never get a next rejection letter like this.
Just like that.
And I just went in and I just worked and worked and worked and worked. And the next year we applied and I won it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I took down the rejection letter and be like, all right.
Put up the plaque and we're all good now.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where, you know what I mean? Part of it was my ego where it's just like, yo, if you're doing stuff, you always feel like no one's doing more than you. But it's, it's also very good to be humbled and be like, yeah, there's other people out here who's actually doing more than you. You know what I mean?
It makes sense.
But it did, make me want to work harder to actually try to get to that point because, I've always had just this checklist of things that I want to do. You know what I mean? And I'm at a point in life now where it's like, I just ran out of things to check because I've done all the things. So now I'm just kind of like looking at what are some next things that I can do.
There's still a lot. Because the market has opened up so much now. There's still so much more. There's things that you can do that you didn't even imagine about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely true. I mean, I've always tried to be, very, innovative. I mean, we closed it down now, but I had a mobile app where, people could just go on and listen to my poetry and stuff on their phone. They're on the subway or whatever. I've done 2 TV shows that I've produced.
Okay. What shows were those?
I had one that I did with Bell Fibe called Right in Toronto. Okay. And then I had another one that I did with Afro Global TV called Poetically Speaking.
Okay.
So did those. I did a short film, to kind of move into that world, and that was screened, I think maybe also in '98. I don't even remember at the Real World Film Festival.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've done like one-man shows, like plays and different things or whatever. So I mean, I'm just keeping busy.
So you're an actor also.
I have acted. Yeah, I've been in a couple movies. I've acted in other people's plays. I've acted in my own plays and stuff like that. So yeah. So
you're serious. That's where it's going to even bring me back to the. Let me see if I have my dates right. 2008. You were on the official Black History poster.
Yes.
That was 2008.
That was 2008.
All right, so I'm back to go. Okay, I'm good.
Yes.
How did that happen? Because anybody that knows that poster, if you get on that poster, you're official. You're 100% official. How did that even come around?
Well, I mean, that year they wanted to do the spotlight, do a spotlight on men. So that was the only year where it was only men on the poster, and it was myself, it was Maestro, and a couple other people, and Robert Small, who's the gentleman who paints the painting every year. Okay. He just reached out to me and he's like, hey, you know what? You want to. I'm thinking of having you be a part of this, and I'm just like, I'm totally down. I'm honored, and you know what? To go out to schools, even today, some schools still have it up in the schools, and I'm like, hey, look at me on this poster or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like it was awesome. Yeah, it's great.
That's amazing, because you see that poster everywhere. When you look around, you see that poster. Those people seem like you can't touch those people. They're almost like that's all they are a painting. They don't exist. You can't touch them.
Yeah.
So to be on something like that, amazing. You know what I mean? And I'm not even sure if you understand how big that is to be on something like that.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, for me, it's really hard, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's like I do so much stuff that I don't always get the time to just sit back and reflect and be like, oh, I did that, or oh, that was really big, because it's like there's always something else on the go and something else on the plate. So, you know, one of the things that I have to get better at is just smelling the roses. You know what I mean? And being like, yo, I worked hard for this. You know what I mean? And just
even
really
if it's for a minute, just say, okay, you know, all right, back to work.
I mean, that's one of the one thing I'll say I always do that with is the star on the Walk of Fame at Scarborough Town Center. So
you see, you beat me. I was just about to ask you about that. How did that even happen?
That one is, you know, it's interesting because when they reached out to me, I thought it was like a prank. I thought somebody was like pranking me on this. So I'm just like, you talking about you want to put me on the Walk of Fame or whatever in Scarborough? I'm like, yo, I just write some poems. And and then they were like, no, we're serious. You're going to be the person for the arts for this year. And I'm just like, all right, wow. And I actually cried a little when I was doing my acceptance speech and stuff, because so many people that have been a part of the journey came out that day. Yeah. And it's like, you know, at the Scarborough Town Center where they did it, it's where they normally have Santa Claus and stuff, and people are looking down from upstairs or whatever, and they introduced me, and people just started screaming and cheering or whatever, and I'm looking around and I'm just seeing people from back in the day and whatever, and I'm just like, wow, this is ridiculous. And like I had my daughter there, and like she could see, you know, just my name in the ground and whatever, and it's like, man, it's a humbling thing, because it's like, you know, even when I talk to kids about it, I'm like, you know, when I pass and gone, that's still gonna be there. People can walk on it and be like, yo, who was this guy? You know what I mean? And then go and look it up, right? And to be able to do something with your life, even something that you don't always think is, you know, high profile or whatever, but have other people see such value in it that they give you this kind of honor is such a humbling experience.
Yeah, because that's hard legacy, because we're all working on our legacy. Okay, we want people to say this, we want to do that. But something like that, a star, until they move that ground, that's there basically forever. And even when they do move it, they're going to put it somewhere else, preserve it. That's hard legacy. If you were to disappear today, never heard from you again, that's there forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then that's going to fast forward us now to, let's get to 2017 or 18, you were a candidate for NDP.
2018.
Okay. How did you get into politics?
Well, they actually reached out to me. Yeah. And they're just like, yeah, you know, have you ever thought of it? And I was just like, hey, this is a real short conversation. Absolutely not. I'm not interested. And then I talked to some people, and they're just like, well, why wouldn't you do it? Like, it's pretty much what you already do, but it actually just puts you in a position to actually make more change around the things that you talk about anyways. And I'm just like, all right, I guess. So then I called the people back, and I'm just like, all right, tell me more about it or whatever. And then we went through the process to actually get, you know, officially on the ballot and that sort of thing. And then, then it was a hustle. I mean, it was a great learning experience, because I mean, it's a whole different world from the world that I know of. You know what I mean? And politics is a whole different beast. When you're someone like me, you know, and you put your work out there, then you go into politics. Everything is fair game. So people started looking at the lyrics to everything that I wrote and to this and that, and started making memes and tweets and this and that.
That's how serious it started to get?
Oh, man, it was on next levels. Every day. Some next thing, oh, did you know Dwayne Morgan believes in it? Like, they might take one sentence and be like, yeah, this is who he is, or this is what he believes, or whatever. And it's like, had like PR people calling me down, trying to be like, hey, what's up with this, that, or whatever. And I'm just like, man. Like, I had to like take stuff down off of Spotify, this and that.
What?
Like, because like people with the PC party were ruthless. They just went through digging, trying to find anything that they could find, like, and stuff from like even years ago, and it didn't even matter. Like, it's like, so I'm just like, some people are groomed for that kind of life. You know, it's like, it's kind of in the family or whatever, so they know from young, hey, don't do this, don't do this,
Make
or whatever.
Make sure you know what you're tweeting or you're putting out.
Yeah, all them kind of things, right? But, for me, who speaks about community, who has a little sex poem here and whatever, it's like all these things is like coming to the forefront now, you know what I mean? Because you're throwing your hat in the ring. And a lot of it is just really just trying to, distract people, discredit you or whatever.
Shake you and see what comes out.
Yeah, and it's just like, and they tell you, it's tough, but just ignore all of it.
Yeah.
Just ignore it. And it's every day, every minute your phone's going off. Oh, somebody liked this, retweeted. And you're just like, man, I want to respond. But they said don't respond. But I know if I respond, I'm going to clap back in a way that it's not going to be good for me. So I'm
this
just
is
like,
not politically correct. And this is what I'm trying to be politically correct right now.
Yeah, man. So it taught me restraint.
Yeah.
Patience. Compassion. It was good to put myself out there in that kind of way and be like, because I wanted young people to be able to look at what I was doing and be like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? One thing I wanted to ask you about was your blackness in a corporate setting. When you have to deal with a lot of these corporations, because we know you move around, you deal with a lot of corporations. How do you handle your blackness in that type of setting?
Well, I mean, I'm black, period.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I go into an environment, the question is, how much of my blackness can they digest in this particular room?
Okay.
And so, I have poems that are, hard-hitting blackness, and I have other poems that are like gentle nudging blackness. So, I kind of feel out a room and be like, all right, this is what I think they can handle, without going overboard or feeling, oh, this is too much for me or that sort of thing. And I mean, it's a fine line to navigate, because at the end of the day, my thing as an artist is, what do I have to do so that if they do this again, they think that guy was great, I want him back. Yeah. Right? Or you could just be like, I'm going to do my own thing, and they'll be like, they'll never have you back. And they're going to tell their friends to never go with this guy. You know what I mean?
Go rogue and I'm just saying what I'm saying, I don't care.
Yeah, so it's a fine line, and it's a nuance that comes with maturity and really being able to understand people, how to look at a room and understand what is needed in a particular room, having enough material so that you have stuff to choose from, so that you're not in a situation where it's like, I only have these 3 poems. Yeah. So, this is going to just go how it's going to go. You know what I mean? To work. So, in any situation, I can finesse my way around whatever is happening. And I mean, I always tell people that, to try to write as much diverse stuff as possible, because I mean, I've performed in churches, I've performed for the government, I've performed in strip clubs, I've performed, you name it, I probably performed there. You know what I mean? And I have material that can go any environment. And so when people look at how do you last 26 years, it's because I have audiences that you don't even know about, right? So sometimes, I'm busy, I'm working, you're sleeping because you don't even think there's an event happening that day.
7 a.m. downtown on King Street, where it's a breakfast meeting.
Yeah, it's like, so there's so many different things. And as long as you are creating material that can fit into all these different things, then there's always going to be people saying, hey, I want you to come here, I want you to do this and that. And I've had so many, awesome experiences, from doing that. I remember, I did a reggae festival in Barbados, and this was before I even had the reggae album. And, Luciano was the headliner for that. And so they've had, they did a big TV interview. It was like they interviewed Luciano and me. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? But it's like, hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm just happy. Yeah, in that situation, it's like, yeah, you're just happy, but then you got to be like, yeah, of course I'm supposed to be here. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure, Luciano's the headliner, but do you know who Dwayne Morgan is? You know what I mean? So it was, so many opportunities come from just just putting stuff out there, just creating, just writing stuff. And not everything that I write is the best of my writing ability, but sometimes you just got to write stuff to put it out there, and you just never know what's going to hit with who or wherever. And I've always been an advocate of just put it out, put it on the internet, whatever. Somebody will find it, and maybe something will happen. And that's how I've always done my entire career. It's just, I just create and give it away.
It makes sense because you have it in you to give. So why not continue to give and see where it goes?
Yeah.
Makes sense. You know what I mean? Let's talk about some of your brands. I know you have 3 big brands. When Brothers Speak, When Sisters Speak, and Soul Slam. Those are your 3 big brands right now.
Yes.
Let's break them down. Give the people a bit about these brands.
All right, so When Brothers Speak, last November was 20 years that I've been producing that particular event, and it's the biggest show of its kind in North America, and it's just a poetry show of black men from across North America speaking uncensored about whatever their experiences are.
Okay.
And there's really, nothing else really like it. We have a lot of dialogues about, not listening to black men not having a platform to really speak. So I created that platform, and it's, like I said, been going for 20 years, very successful. The first Saturday of March, where is it? This year, I think it's the second Saturday, March 9th, we do When Sisters Speak.
Yes.
And that's always right around International Women's Day. And it's the same thing at first. I left it. I thought a woman would do it. I thought a woman would see me do When Brothers Speak and be like, yo, I got to do When Sisters Speak, and none did. So I was just like, all right, I'll do it, right? So this is the 19th year for When Sisters Speak coming up in March. And these aren't poetry shows like, if you've never been, you can't imagine necessarily what I'm talking about, because this is in a 500-seat theater where people dress up, they make it a date, they go out to dinner first, or they go out to a party after, or whatever. But you come, everybody sits down, there's nobody who has to stand up or whatever. People pay good money, and that's the thing, right? People hear a poetry show and the tickets are like $50, and like, what kind of poetry show is this? But it's like, I started the show in the comfort zone at college in Spadina, and no chairs, people had to stand up and listen to this thing. And I really at one point said, you know what, I have to elevate what it is that I'm doing. And a friend of mine did a show at the St. Lawrence Center for the Arts, and he did this dance competition, and I went there to support him, and I'd never been to that venue before, and I'm like, why would he think to bring his dance competition here, and I haven't thought to bring my thing into a place like this? I'm like, I'm never doing it in a place like that again. I need to elevate it. And this is a facility that our tax dollars go towards. It's a city-owned spot that we don't use. So the only time our community actually goes to the St. Lawrence Center for the Arts is for When Brothers Speak, When Sisters Speak, and the African Canadian Achievement Awards. Other than that, they don't see people who look like us. So even working with their staff has been interesting, because I had to teach their staff the culture of my audience. Because they have an audience that they're used to. My audience isn't that audience. So when my show starts at 8 and they close the box office at 8:15 to go home, I'm like, Bridget, my people is just reaching at 8:15. Even though the show started at 8 and I'm on stage, half of my audience is going to reach between 8:15 and 8:30 with some kind of excuse. So you can't leave at 8:15. You have to stay. And now I've been doing shows there, I believe, 15 years now. And they tell me every time that it's like the only show, Brothers Speak and Sisters Speak are the only shows that they do there where people volunteer to work. Like everybody wants to work for those shows. Because it's such a different experience, it's such a different audience, it's such a different energy that everybody wants to be there on that night. It's not like, oh man, let me see if I could duck out of work. No, everybody wants to be there and want to work. Right? So, and that comes from, again, changing the culture. And that's about the blackness, but it's like, all right, we're going to bring this blackness here, and we're going to work with you to learn how to work with this blackness.
Makes sense.
Right? And a few years ago, they put out this little book about the venue, and it's like, oh, the St. Lawrence Center, home of the opera, home of jazz, home of spoken word. I'm like, home of spoken word? Y'all didn't have no spoken word before me. But now it's a part of how they brand themselves that this is a place where this happens.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, they had me in that brochure thing and whatever. And it's just like, you know, sometimes, you know, if we think small about what we do, then we're only going to be small with what we do. Right.
Makes sense.
And people think that I make a whole lot of money when they see the ticket is like $50. I'm like, if you know how many costs is coming out of that $50 before my piece is left. But I'm like,
if I'm left with $3 per ticket, I'm lucky.
But it's like, you know, but it's necessary to make sure that people understand that there's value here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, again, and we talked about this earlier, if you just go to the little thing that's $5, this or that, you just don't think there's any real value there. $5, if it sucks, who cares? You know what I mean? But if I'm going to charge people $50, that means I'm going to try to put the best people on stage. I'm going to try to give you the best possible evening that I can possibly give you. You know what I mean? So, and I want people to know that there are things that are happening in our community that you can go out and it's going to be, you know, high class. It's not going to be anything where, you know, oh, it's ghetto or it's this or it's that or whatever. It's like, you know, we're going to give you some stuff to think about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you guys go home and on the car ride, you talk about some of the things you just heard, right? And I think, you know, everything is balanced and there has to be balance, but I think that's part of what's missing. We need more of those things where it's like, you go out, you experience something, then you talk about it.
Yeah.
Talk about, you know, when that guy said that, you know, it really made me think about X, Y, and Z and really open people up.
A whole different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So it's not that the event happens in 3 hours, but the event continues when you leave.
Basically right until the next year again. That makes sense. I've been to a couple of When Brothers Speak and When Sisters Speak, and they're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
As you said, it's not like, okay, roses are red, violets are blue. The sun is great, and so are you.
Yeah, we don't do that.
No.
We don't.
This is the big boy place right here, and the big girl place.
Yeah.
And I mean, they came to perform. All right, this round here I'm going to get you into is called Rapid Facts. I spit off some quick questions. You just give me back the answers just as quick. All right. What's the wallpaper on your phone?
Myself and my daughter.
All right. What's the last thing you Googled?
Recipes for a cast iron pot.
Yeah. Okay, pretty interesting. All right. Are you a cooker or a cleaner?
Cooker.
You're a cooker. All right. When it comes to reggae music, do you prefer dancehall or lovers rock?
Right now, I'm going to have to say lovers rock.
Okay, fair enough. I can live with that. Who's the last person you called or text?
That would be my daughter's mother.
Okay. Where was the last place you've been on vacation?
Jamaica.
All right. What is your hobby?
Photography, I guess.
Okay. What song is playing in your car right now?
Well, the radio was playing, so...
Yeah.
I couldn't even answer that.
It was just the radio.
It was just the radio.
Okay. When it comes to food, do you prefer curry goat or oxtail?
You know, these are the kind of questions that's very, very difficult. But I'm going to go with the curry goat.
All right.
I actually just cooked some curry goat today. So
all right. Okay, good one. What's your favorite song of all times?
Wow. Favorite song of all times, Redemption Song.
All right. Who's your favorite artist of all times?
Oh, see, that one's controversial now. Because the original answer is R. Kelly, so so it's probably not the time to actually go into all that, right? So,
wow. Okay, we'll just we'll just leave it there because of obvious reasons. But I get it. I definitely get it. Okay, one word you say too much.
Man, that's hard because I don't even talk all that often. Yeah.
So, a word or a phrase?
Yeah, I honestly don't even know.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah.
All right, I'll leave that in your mind.
All right.
We'll get to the next. There's two more before we get to the end of the round.
Okay.
Are you an early bird or a late owl?
See, that one's hard too because I find sleep boring. So I mean, I'm up early I'm up early and I stay up late.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I catch 6 hours, that's a good night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like I'm up early, I'm up late.
I hear you. Okay, when it comes to social media, what is your favorite platform and why?
Right now, I would say Instagram, just because it seems to have more just more connection with me and people that I communicate with.
Yeah.
Are more active on it, so I can actually check in with people faster on Instagram than any other platform right now.
Makes sense. Last one for you. Introvert or extrovert?
Complete introvert.
Yeah. Which is so weird because you're the one that stands on stage and does all this wonderful stuff. You know what I mean? From you came in, you've been so open, you're talking, and then you say introvert. That almost contradicts itself.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you look at the Clark Kent and the Superman and that sort of thing, and I know when I'm Dwayne and I know when I'm Dwayne Morgan, and it's a very clear line for me. And you know, right now, this is an interview with Dwayne Morgan.
Yeah.
Because you probably wouldn't want to interview Dwayne because he's real boring. So you know, I know when to be on, and then the minute when this is over, just go right back to, you know, I don't call people on the phone. I prefer to text and write people and whatever. Okay. Because I don't talk a whole lot.
That's just you.
That's me.
All right. Came to the end of it. The floor is yours. Big up anybody. Say anything you want. The floor is yours right now.
All right, so, well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to be on the podcast. I always look forward to any opportunity to share. And I think, you know, one of the things that I'm glad you didn't say, hey, do you want me to send you the questions in advance? Because I hate seeing the questions in advance because...
Just flow.
Yeah, you know, you always, in your head, you're just like, oh, when we get to this one, what's going to be the best answer I could give to sound eloquent and intelligent and stuff? I'm just like, look, man, let's just go with it. Let's just go. I don't care what you ask me. I said, ask me anything, we're just going to go with it. You know what I mean? So I love that it had that kind of, you know, flow to it. I always got to give up a big up to my sister, Nikki.
World boss.
Yeah, all the people out there, you know, Jay Martin, Ian Espinay, all the DJs, all the people who just out there hustling, man, because there's so many of us that, you know, are hustling in our own little ways, doing our thing, and I just try to support everybody in whatever way that I can, and I just want to see everybody win.
Yeah, true. This is what just yesterday I told somebody. I said, listen, if you win, that means I have the opportunity to win also. But if I don't want you to win, that means somebody's in some room not wanting me to win also. So whatever you do or think, somebody's doing the same thing for you too. So you always got to think positive, optimistic. You know what I mean? What I like about you, this is our first time actually sitting down and talking. What I like about you is you've dealt with governments, you've dealt with diplomats, you've dealt with everybody, and you're just normal. You didn't come and, hi, my name is Dwayne Morgan, and yes, there's certain questions you could ask me, and I might respond. You did not do that at all.
No, I mean, I'm just, whatever situation you find me in, I'm the same guy. You know what I mean? Like nothing that I've done, nothing that I've experienced, nowhere that I've been has changed who I am. And I think, you know, I credit my grandparents for that and just really teaching, you know, humility and just, you know, what you do is what you do. It's not who you are. You know what I mean? And just understanding that I'm just like everybody else. You know what I mean?
No, amazing. This was a great podcast. We could have gone on for hours.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have to invite you back a couple more times because we need the entire story. We couldn't do 26 years in an hour and a half. That's impossible. You know what I mean? We barely covered a day. But the stories, your way of thinking, what you brought to the table is amazing. And I'm happy that you agreed to be a guest on the podcast.
Yeah, anytime, man.
You know what I mean? So, Mr. Morgan, thank you. My door is always open. Anytime you need anything, come back and let's talk. We'll chop it up.
No problem.
All right. This is Muscle for another Two Line Music Hut's Entertainment Report podcast, and we are out. This podcast is brought to you by www.twolinedmusichut.com.